Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Thanks for joining me here today. Can't wait to dive into today's Motivation and Mindset Monday topic. And that is a little contradictory to the phrase that we've often heard before of burning the bridges. And if you've never heard of burn the bridges before, what it means is that you are going all in on whatever your new venture is, whatever your new goal is, whatever your dream is that you want in life. And I don't always think that that's a bad thing necessarily to do. By burning the bridges, essentially, or I should say burning the bridges or burning the boats, both sayings are appropriate, it means that there's no going back. So when you were basically in an army and you were attacking whatever the castle was, you would burn your boats. And you would burn the boats so that there was no way to return home. The only thing there was left to do was essentially win. And the same with burn the bridges, the same exact thing. There's no going back. And so we use that topic today, not as violently, not as graphically as it was once used, but now it's meaning that when we're trying to go for a new, let's say, career, whatever it is, we just leave whatever our previous job was and we just go all in on whatever the new job is. Maybe we don't even have that new job yet. Maybe we've literally quit our job and we're saying, okay, I'm just going to go after my dream job, my dream career, whatever it might be. We do that sometimes with relationships or with our wellness. We'll be talking about all of these topics today. So while I'm saying that sometimes is actually a good thing to do because you say, I'm just going all in, I'm fully committed, and I'm going to go for it. And you know, that has served me well before in my life. When I opened my first practice back in 2007, I went all in and I said, okay, I'm going to take on this big lease and I'm going to take on all these things and I'm going to be hiring people under me directly, not just as a consultant for the first time. And I was responsible for other people and all the stress and everything that went along with that. And I went all in. And at that time, it was the right thing to do. But again, there was a lot of risk. I had to put all of the expenses for building up this practice on credit cards, and it was debt, and it was all of those things that aren't always the best thing to do. But I burned the bridges and I said, there's no going back. I'm committing to this, and I wanted to do it, and I'm going to do it. And I did it, and it worked. And I'm obviously very happy with that. That was like a great start for me to running my own show because for the first, or I should say 3 or 4 years before that, I was essentially independent. I was working, I would travel to people's homes. I would work out of different gyms. I would work out of different spas. I would consult with over 12 in the beginning. Then it grew to over 20 different spas and health clubs. And I would hire and train all of their, whether it be personal trainers, nutritionists, yoga instructors, massage therapists, etc., and set up all of those. And I loved doing that. That was a lot of fun. But for me, I didn't love the travel. I didn't love going to New York and New Hampshire and Connecticut and all the surrounding states around Massachusetts. And so for me, I wanted to set up shop. And I said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to make it happen. And I did it, and it was great. But what I'm saying is most of the time, there's a smarter and safer way to do it. And I want to explain that not with just career, but with your own wellness or your body transformation or relationships or spirituality and all those things. And it's the opposite to burning your bridges. It's actually kind of like building off of and maybe hedging your bets a little bit and playing both sides or being a little bit safe. So for example, one thing that I could have done while opening up this practice 13 years ago now, the first practice that I had ever opened, was that I could have been working in another practice at the same time. I could have been doing some in-home sessions, whatever it might be, while opening up this first center. And the reason is, then that would have brought in some income without me totally just saying I'm going all in. Like that would have been one way to possibly do it. And the reason why I bring this up, obviously from a health-based perspective, is that on last Monday's Mindset and Motivation Monday, it was a listener question that wrote in saying, how long will it take to get well? Well, I wanted to do that and make it its own show. And I did that last Monday. And I hope that you check that out. It was the Road to Recovery and really repair and rejuvenating the body. And this goes for everybody. And I gave the timeline it typically takes people. And a lot of people ask me, and I quote a lot of research on the podcast, but I don't want these podcasts to get super dry. There's a lot of podcasts, and I'm not saying that they are dry, but it just goes through study after study after study. I like to save those for my Friday reviews and give you some of the research. Now, I do the research and I use it every day in my practice, but what I give people is what actually works from a clinical perspective. So I take the research, but beyond the research is great. But if you're only learning from someone that only does research studies, they're not working with people in the real world. And that's why I love real world clinicians and practitioners say, hey, what are you doing right now that's working great for you? And when I go to conferences and I chat with my colleagues, we talk about that all the time. And I share always openly, and I share it every day on the Cabral concept. But I share it with other clinicians as well and just saying, this is what I'm doing. These are the different dosages that I'm using. Here's how I'm using it. Here's what I change it with. Here's the labs that I'm running. This is why I like this lab over this lab. I'm always sharing those things. Well, again, even myself as a clinician, I don't just all of a sudden drop a lab test. So I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit today. And I want you to be able to hopefully use a little bit of this in your own life. So for example, when I'm looking at new labs, which I always am, I'll use my current lab as the control. And again, I want you to think about how you might use this in your own life as the control. So right now, let's say, for example, I'm using the organic acids test, and I'm using Great Plains Laboratory, I'm using some other lab. And what I will do is I will use another organic acids type test, and I will say, I'll run the one that I know works great, and I'll run this one, and I'll say, how did it match up? Are they exactly the same? Is the data the same? And then I say, if I were a wellness client, would I be able to read this lab as well as this one? Because again, we're doing this for people. We're not doing it just to say, hey, look at how smart we are. Like that is never the goal. It should be never the goal of any practitioner. But I see that so much. I see all these competitions like practitioners are having against each other. And I say, wow, like that just kind of shows where you are. It shows that you're in the egocentric phase of your career where it's not about people. It's about proving yourself right. And like, okay, that's fine in the beginning, but at some point you need to move past that and make this about people and make this about helping others get well. So what I do is every time I go for a new lab, I always compare it against the one that I already had. But if it's a brand new lab and I just don't have it. So for example, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I wasn't using an omega-3 lab. So what I did was I actually got this lab that had the best data around it, the best research around it. But then I purchased the lab and I purchased two. And I ran them both myself under two different names, and I ran them both at the same exact time of the day, and everything was exactly the same. And I needed to make sure that the labs came back exactly the same. And if they did, I said, great, this is reputable. We can use this. And again, I've always done that in my career. I've put my own money on the line, and I've made sure that to get the results. But what I don't do is simply just say, oh, I'm going to use this lab test because everyone else is using it. And we see that a lot in our industry. It's like the best marketed one. So that, of course, that means it's the best one. Well, that's not necessarily true. You want to compare it against one that's been around for 20, 30, 40 years and has consistently gotten the results that you want. So it's the same thing when I talk about in your own health. What would I do? Well, again, let's say you want to take your wellness to the next level. And I work with a lot of people right now. They're already well. We've gotten them well. Of course, that was the goal, right? Whether it took a month or whether it took 6 months, the goal was to get them well. And we did that. So now they say, well, I want to take my health to the next level. And I say, great. And some people say, I want to go fully vegan. And I say, okay, I can help you with that. Or some people say, I want to go more low carb. And I say, great, I can help you with that. But here's what I want to do. I don't think, and I've never seen this play out great in the real world, is that we just stop everything and jump right to that. Now, again, you can. But wouldn't it be even more interesting if we said, okay, your carbs right now, let's just say, for example, the person's at 120 carbohydrates per day. And I say, can we take your carbohydrates down to 80, right? Can I knock those down from 40, 80, 120? Can I knock it down by a third? And I want to see, how do you do for 2 weeks at 80 carbs per day? Not 2 days, because I know that you already have stored glycogen. You can use that. What about normal routine, normal exercise, 80 carbs per day every day? How do you feel? And if you feel great, then we'll go below the 50 carbs. We'll go, and that's considered low carb, below 50 carbs. and predominantly from vegetables. And we'll go down to 40 then. And they said, okay, let's try that. And I say, great, let's do that, because they want to lean out. They want to try to, go more towards having more fat in their diet. And for them, if that's what they choose to do, I'm going to try to help them do it the safest way and healthiest way possible. And so we'll do that. And then they might go down to 40 carbs and they say, oh, I feel great still. And then after 2 weeks, they say, you know what? I feel great except the day after exercising when they're maybe a little bit depleted. And I say, okay, would you like to do then higher carb days? Those would be our 80 carb days on the days that you're exercising. So we just replenish more after the workout. So we simply add in one more smoothie. That's all we need. And it would be post-workout. And that would have 40 grams of carbs. Would you like to do that? And they say, let's try that. And they say, great. And so now what we know is we already knew, because remember, so this is why, again, don't necessarily just throw everything out and start fresh with something else, because you have something that's working, right? You have something that's working. That's the goal. The goal is to get to something in your life that's pretty good, that you can live with. That's a whole lot better than where you were. And then you don't want to lose that. You want to make an incremental jump now. So now what we're saying, again, because we're talking about how to do this from a longer term perspective, and from a perspective that you continue to build off of and grow. And I'll get back to that, because these are all learning experiences. So the person went from 120 carbs to 80 carbs. They replaced it a little bit more with healthy fat, avocado, olive oil, etc., so that they didn't have to go high protein, which is where sometimes a lot of the issues can come from. So now we went to 80. We know they're great at 80. They went down to 40. They didn't feel so great the day after they exercised. So we say, okay, so on the 4 days a week that they exercise, those are the days that they're going to do 40 more carbs after their workout. And now they have 3 low days and they have 4 higher days only on the days they work out. Now, if they miss the workout, they won't go a higher carb day. And I talked about this on my interview with Amanda Tress, and it's called carb cycling. And it can work great. And I've used this with athletes. I've used it with body transformation people, and I use it with everyday people as well. And so that's what we did. That's an example of how to try to figure out how low you can go in carbs without feeling fully depleted. And that's an easy way to do it without having to just immediately go low carb and not know what your essentially carb tolerance is. In this way, the amount that you feel great in your body, right? This is an easy way to figure it out. Same with the weight loss plan. I've talked about this before. You can just jump from plan to plan to plan, which a lot of people do. So here's what they do. Example of a weight loss plan. Again, I've been doing this forever. So we say a person jumps on Atkins, and they do Atkins, and they do that for a while and just say, you know what, I can't eat all the meat and the fat and the bacon and all of those things. And they say, okay, I'm just going to stop it. And then they gain back the weight. They might gain back the 10, 15 pounds that they lost. And they just on a regular diet, eating whatever they'd like. They say, now I'm going to try this plan, which is also low carb, but it doesn't have as much of the saturated fat and bacon, those types of things. So they go and they do this plan. And they say, you know what, I need some carbohydrates though. So then they go back and they get off that plan and they're kind of eating it, but kind of not. And they're kind of doing low carb, but kind of not, and eating what they want. And it didn't work. So what they're doing though, is they're finding that for them, going towards a little bit lower carb is helping them lose weight. But then they can't maintain it because they want to eat carbs again. So then they go back and they just gain all the weight back because they go back to their regular diet. Well, what I teach people to do is this, and this is what I'm always preaching, is that listen to your body, understand what's working, because again, I've taught this since, literally the late 90s. So, and again, did I make it up? Absolutely not. How did I learn true body transformation? Well, I learned it through natural bodybuilding, studying all of my mentors who were other bodybuilders, whether they were natural or not natural. They got results by adding more carbs in and more food in to bulk up. And then they wanted to lean out. They did not crazy cardio, but moderate cardio, a lot of times walking, a lot of times fasted cardio in the morning. And I've talked about that on previous Training Thursdays. And then they would start to gradually decrease their carbohydrates. And that's what they would do. And then they would have what's called refueling or refeeding meals once a week, which would help with leptin and ghrelin and a lot of things that they didn't even really know the science behind, but they knew it worked. Why? Because they were practitioners of their craft. And it would be hard to dispute with the level of science that a true bodybuilder uses to change their body. And it's down to a science. Again, yes, you can use drugs for a lot of these things. It's true, but not so much in the, when people are trying to do it from a natural based perspective. And you could say, yes, we can lower those, but here's the goal. and I've taught this again before, is let's go lower carb to lose the weight if you want. But then let's just not blow it up. What we want to do after 3 weeks, 21 days is typically where I see the most benefit. And then that's why, again, we have the 21-day detox, and it does that naturally. But then I have a podcast that says how to transition off a low carb diet. And it goes in depth on, we can't stay there forever. So here's what we're going to do so that we don't. And again, I can tell you from a clinical perspective, a lot of women, not as much men, but a lot of women start to go lower thyroid. So their metabolism actually starts to shrink. Now they need to eat less calories. And again, I've done whole shows on that, so I don't want to get into that today. Today, it's about building off of your wins. So it's okay. You learn that this works. Now don't blow it up. Add in one cheat meal per week. That's what we do in one of my studios in Boston. We add in the cheat meal per week. Is that working? Great. Now we're going to add more carbs back at lunch. And again, we teach this with the Integrative Health Practitioner certification and course. How to do this to find out how many carbs your body can tolerate right now. So we know it works low, but we can't stay there forever. So we're moving back to some healthier carbs. Of course, we want to eat carbohydrates. We know the benefits from all of the antioxidants. And a lot of people are trying to preach the benefits of carnivore right now. I've done a whole podcast on why that should not be a long-term plan. And if you're getting great benefit, here's why. If you're getting less immune pain, if you're getting less aches, and you're getting less pain, you're getting all of that, remember, you have to look to why that would be. Always ask why. And the reason why is that you're not eating the fermentable carbohydrates that can cause a lot of the overgrowth of SIBO and Candida. And if you have intestinal permeability, well, it's not allowing for as much of that bacterial overgrowth as well. So again, we need to look to always ask the question why. Always ask why. But what I want to teach today is building off of those wins. So whether it be with career, another great one is career. Let's look at that. So for example, you're doing something that, is paying the bills right now. But what you really want to do, let's say, is become a health coach. Well, one thing that I've taught before is this, is like, let's say you're working in finance right now. And I always give this example, but let's say you're working in finance and you do something like the Integrative Health Practitioner certification. And it might take you 3 or 4 months to become level certified and another 3 or 4 months to become level 2 certified if you want to do level 2. You can study. You can do that at night. You can do it in the morning. You can do it at lunch break. You can take your time, get certified. And then what you can start doing as well is after you get certified, start to teach online. You start to get this information out to other people. And then you start taking on your first clients. Or maybe, so this is what I would do. I would start taking on my own online virtual clients. You speak with them over Skype just like we do. You can offer labs if you'd like through a practice. And then you start to go from 2 days a week, 2 nights a week, to 3 nights a week. And then once you've built up 3 nights a week and you're really getting full and it's been a couple months and you can see your returning people come back and you're helping a lot of people, you're getting referrals, then you can go to 5 nights. Or what you can do is you can just say, no, now I'm going to see if my current place that I'm working at will allow me to go to 3 days a week. And now I'm going to do 2 full days virtual. And then when that's working, then I'm going to knock it down to 2 days a week. And then I'm going to go to 3 days virtual. And then if I'm on 3 days virtual, then once I'm all booked up, then I can go to 5 days. I can jump from 3 to 5. And I've done that myself. I've taught it to others. Again, when I was doing nutrition consultations and personal training, when I was in college, when I got out of college, and I knew that I wanted to get more into functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, etc., I still worked for 3 days as a personal trainer and nutritionist. Although nutrition you could consider part of the functional medicine practice. And then I did 2 days. And I did 2 days in a chiropractor's or integrative medical practice where there were 2 chiropractors, there were 2 acupuncturists, there was 1 massage therapist, and I was doing all of the naturopathic work. And so it was a great practice to be a part of. And then I built it up and I was then 4 days a week and I kept 1 day of the personal training. The reason is because I love the personal training. So then after I was booked up, I said, okay, now I'm getting more people than I can really handle, which is a great problem to have, right? So then I opened up a full wellness center after that. So that was a way that I was able to build off of my successes and build off of my wins. And I think a lot of people should be doing this in life in general. I've talked about it in the relationship realm. So you've been in a bunch of bad relationships, but there has to be some good pieces to that. Like, what did you really enjoy about the person, even though it didn't work out? What did you really enjoy doing? Or what did you learn more about yourself? Because you might be learning a lot about what you don't like in life that doesn't have to be negative. So if you are in arguments or you're upset about things, like what are you learning from that? What can you take from that? There has to be something. It can't all be negative. So what can you take from that now relationship that didn't work that could take you into a new relationship of what more you're looking for? And also just, again, as an aside of what you're not looking for. Are you not into people that smoke or that don't like to eat well because you're trying to be on more of a health-based path? And if you are, can you find that person? Can you attract that person that is more into maybe exercising or trying to eat well? Or if you're already married, you're in a relationship and the other person doesn't want to eat well, they don't want to do these healthy things, what can you do to start to bridge that gap? What conversations can you have with that person that allows you to say, okay, I want to eat this way, you want to eat more of this way? Is there something in the middle? Or can we do that like once a week or twice a week as more of a flex meal rather than overall eating healthy? It's trying to build off of what you've already seen be successful. You're trying to be that light for others as well and build off of that without just saying, none of this is working. It's not working. I'm just going to blow everything up and start fresh. You can do that, but it also causes so much more stress. Like when you just, again, let's just say you leave a job and now you have no income coming in, and then you're trying to say like, I need to make this work as a health coach, or I need to make this work in whatever other career it is. That can sometimes be more stress than it's worth. And you don't need more stress right now in your life. None of us do. So what I want you to think about is this. Yes, there are times to absolutely go all in and burn the bridges. But whether it's a diet plan that you're making adjustments on, can it just be small tweaks from what you've already seen work? Because in the long run, there is no one exact way. It needs to be a way that we know works. It has to be a blueprint that we custom tailor for you that works. So we know our candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol works for candida and bacterial overgrowth. And we have a parasite protocol. We have something for H. pylori. So we have all the things for the gut, and we have how to seal up the gut wall. But like as advice I was giving over the weekend, there's no one specific strain of probiotic that you need to be taking. You need to be doing in the right order. Yes, there are specific strains that you need to use, but not a special patented one. That's more marketing based, right? You need the acidophilus, and then you could use the L-reuteri, and you could use the plantarum, and you can use all the other great ones. So there's an order, yes, but you need to understand is that we're also tailoring this for your biology. So even though there might be a food such as, let's just say, I don't know, one of my favorite proteins, which would be hemp hearts. It has omegas in it, omega 3, 6, 9. It has fiber in it. It has protein in it. It's hypoallergenic, right? It is nut-free. It's a great protein for people to be using as hemp hearts. And I recommend that a lot for a great lunchtime of vegan-based protein alternative so that you're not eating meat all the time. But let's say it doesn't work for someone. Let's say they either don't like the taste or it gives them GI-based issues. Well, then we won't use it. Even if it's on the plan, you don't have to use it. You have to understand is there are multiple ways to go about this. Your job is to follow an overall map, a blueprint. And that's how you become successful with anything in life. But you're going to make it work for you. You're going to fine tune it for you. Maybe you can eat a half a cup of protein, but you can't do a full cup because your digestive system isn't strong enough yet. Fine. For a month or 2 months, you might just be doing a half a cup. And then you try not a full cup, but you try 3/4. And you say, does that work? And you say, yes, it does for this food and this food and this food. But when I go to have a full cup of red meat, I can't do that. And maybe it's just because that's the hardest to break down. And so you're not able to do a full cup of that, but you can of the others. So all you're looking to do is start with something that does work in your life. Meaning like, I have no doubt that you have something that works in every area of your life, but you've gotten away from it because it didn't give you the exact result that you wanted. It didn't give you the end result. Well, that's fine. Go back to what you know gets you results and then start to make tweaks on that. Because you've found something that works for you to a degree. But now what you need to do is make those fine-tuned adjustments, a couple little pivots, a couple little zigzags, but not taking you away from your initial plan. All you're doing is building off of it. So it's kind of like spokes off of the original hub in the middle. And then eventually you're building this big wheel. Right? You'll build the outside of it, but only spoke by spoke. But the individual hub in the middle is what connects everything. So that's why you have to understand is when you have the blueprint or you have the plan, even if it's not perfect, it doesn't mean don't blow it up. It means that, okay, I want you to look at things a little bit differently here. I want you to look at it as you're on the right track. You're moving forward towards your goals and you're building the new boat as you go along. That's the whole point, is that you're learning along the way. There's that beautiful saying, right? The journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step. Well, here's the thing. You know where you want to go, but over 1,000 miles, things are going to have to change. There's tweaks going to have to be made. And that's even on the best laid plans, no matter what it is, tweaks are going to have to be made. If you've ever built a house, or if you've ever built anything, you see sometimes even with a blueprint, there needs to be small adjustments. So what I want you to do, and what I want you to think about is this. Whatever you're trying to achieve in life, start with something that you know works for the vast majority of people. See what you get for results on that. If your results, and again, make sure it's a safe plan, and if your results are good, but they're not great, or you were not taken to the best level, learn from what you can from that plan, but then also learn what might have been the roadblocks for you. What could be holding you back? Because you're going to learn by doing. So for example, if you do a detox, we're starting our community kicks off with our detox week today, right? And most people, if you're looking for weight loss, will lose about 5 pounds in that first 7 days. But let's say you lose only 2, but you still have 20, 30 pounds to lose. You don't have just 5. You have a 20, 30. So you say, okay, if this works for the majority of people, more than 9 out of 10, why wouldn't it work for me? Because that's the right question to ask. You say, okay, now I call on us, email us. There's no charge to emails. Why wouldn't this work to the greatest degree? We say it's not that you're doing something wrong. Like if you're following the plan, great, good for you. You're getting healthier. But here's the thing. 7 days might not be enough to keep cleaning out that body, or there can be real deeper level issues. And that's what we look for. There's something going on with the thyroid, with the adrenals, with estrogen dominance, with viral overload, with toxicity overload, that there are other issues in the body that are preventing you from losing that 30 pounds. And that's good, because if you had not gone about this, you would not have found out you have something deeper going on. Okay, well, we can work on that. We can run a thyroid adrenal hormone. We can run a toxicity test. We can run an organic acids test. We can run a stool test to see if there is SIBO or if there is H. pylori. We can look at things deeper inside of the body. We can say, okay, we found it. Now we're going to do something like the Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol, or we're going to do the parasite protocol, or we're going to do whatever the protocol is to rebalance your body. And then after that, your body becomes healthier. Now it doesn't need to hold on to that weight. There isn't a reason why. There isn't a hormonal imbalance. If there was adrenal issues, HPA axis dysfunction, we can calm down that fight or flight response. Now your thyroid can start to return to normal. So there is always a next step. What I want you to understand is that what we need you to do is move forward, find out what you're doing pretty well on, begin to build off of those wins. Each win or even a loss can lead to another loss. Can lead to another win. And here's why. If you feel like you're losing, remember, you have to learn from that. There's a great quote, and I don't know, of course, who came up with it first, but there's a mixed martial artist coach named John Kavanagh, and he wrote a book called Win or Learn. And it's one of the best sayings, because if you did not win, that means a lot of people say, well, I lost, I messed up, I didn't come out on top in this one. But no, you learned something from it. The only way that you would lose in that instance is if you didn't learn from it, is if you did a detox and you didn't lose the 5. Why? So you learn from that. Now you learned you have hypothyroidism, or you learned that you had increased intestinal permeability, which was leading to inflammation in the body, which was allowing proteins and bacteria to seep through the gut wall. Well, good, you learned that, because that has to be taken care of. That's a much more serious thing than losing the extra 10 pounds. So we fix that. So we're either winning or we're learning. If you can look at life that way, you're going to be much happier, you're going to be much healthier, and I know you're going to go real far in life. Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate you tuning in to another Motivation and Mindset Monday. Always a pleasure. And of course, as always, if this show was helpful, if this message was helpful, please do pass it along to anyone else you believe it could serve. Before you go, I wanted to share a personal story with you. The real reason I began to get well finally is because I figured out what was wrong with me. And that might seem pretty obvious, but I went from doctor to doctor for over 2 years before discovering at-home functional medicine lab testing. These are the labs that enabled me to finally figure out what was wrong with my hormones, blood sugar, electrolytes, and gut health. And once I knew what was wrong, I could then follow a proven plan in order to rebalance my body from the inside out. This is why I believe so strongly in functional medicine lab testing and why I've made it my mission to share these labs with the world. Now at equa.life, you can order an at-home lab test or lab bundle for you and your family and be able to complete it within the week. Plus, the EquaLife difference is that you're not left to try to read and figure out these labs on your own. We explain what your lab numbers mean, what they mean in the much bigger picture, and then how to go about rebalancing your body in order to heal. To see our full selection of lab tests or to set up a free lab selection call to find out what labs may be best for you, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. And do remember, we ship these all over the world. To find out more and to set up your free lab selection call, simply head on over to equa.life/labs. That's EQUI.LIFE/labs.